This is my true story. I trusted my son with everything. Every paper, every account, every signature. I placed it all in his hands. I believed blood was stronger than greed. I believed he would guard my legacy the way I once guarded his childhood. For years, I slept easy, thinking my future was safe. But one cold winter morning, the phone rang. The bank's voice was calm, but its words cut deep. Your accounts are empty. In that instant, my world collapsed. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me, have you ever felt betrayed by your family? And please subscribe so more people hear my story. I was born in a time when trust meant everything. A man's word was his bond. A handshake sealed more than contracts. So when it came to my son, I believed that same rule applied. He was my blood. I raised him, clothed him, fed him. I carried him on my shoulders when he was small, and I stayed up late to make sure he had what he needed. How could I ever imagine that same child, grown into a man, would be the one to turn my world into ashes? I never thought greed could eat through blood. I never thought family could become stranger. As I grew older, my hands began to shake when I signed checks. My eyes blurred when I tried to read the fine print on bills. My legs were weak, and my steps slower. My son saw this. He watched me fumble with numbers, struggle with writing, and he offered his hand. "Let me help, Father," he said. His voice was smooth, steady, like the boy I once knew. I believed him. I believed his hand was steady not only in writing, but also in heart. So I placed everything into his keeping, every account, every deed, every scrap of paper that proved the work of my life. I told myself it was the right thing. After all, I had worked hard for decades, building a small fortune. The roof over our heads, the savings in the bank, the securities tucked away. All of it was meant for family. And who better to trust than the son who would inherit it? I thought I was being wise. I thought I was being kind. I thought I was passing the torch while I still had strength to guide him. Looking back, I see how blind I was. But at that time, it felt like love. I thought love was enough to keep greed away. I thought the bond of father and son was stronger than the hunger for money. I told myself, he is my son. He will guard my legacy. I repeated it like a prayer. Each time I handed him a paper to sign, each time I let him handle a transaction, I whispered inside, he will not fail me. He smiled when I gave him the files. He said, "Don't worry, Father, I'll take care of it." And I believed him. His hands were calm, his voice was firm. He looked like a man you could trust. I did not see the shadow behind his smile. I did not see the calculation in his eyes. I only saw the boy I once carried on my back, the boy I once held when storms frightened him. I saw what I wanted to see, not what was truly there. I placed not just money in his hands. I placed my faith. I placed my dignity. I placed my entire life's work. That was the rope I gave him, and in giving it, I gave him power to pull me close or hang me high. I thought he would use it to protect me. But later, I would learn he had already begun tightening the noose. In those days, I slept soundly. I thought my future was safe. I thought my old age would be steady, with my son by my side, making sure nothing could harm me. I never checked the papers after handing them over. I never questioned him when he said, "All is fine." That was my mistake. That was my blindness. A father's faith is deep. It is born from years of sacrifice. It is built on memories that no amount of money can buy. But sometimes, faith blinds you. Sometimes it covers your eyes so you cannot see the storm that is already breaking. My faith in him was not strength. It was weakness. It was the blind hope of an old man who could not imagine betrayal from his own blood. And so, I placed every paper, every signature, every account in his hands. I believed blood was stronger than greed. I believed my son would guard my legacy. But I was wrong. That trust became the rope I gave him. And one day, he would use it to pull everything away. For a long time, I lived inside a dream. My son made sure of it. Every time I asked about the bills, he smiled. Every time I asked about the accounts, he told me everything was safe. His words were like a blanket, covering me so I would not feel the cold truth creeping in. He would bring me tea in the evening, place it gently beside my chair, and pat my shoulder like a caring son. I thought his touch was love. I thought his words were comfort. I thought I was blessed to have a child so responsible. He learned my weaknesses and used them well. He knew I could not read the small print on the statements. He knew my hands shook too much to sign checks with ease. He knew my body was slowing down, but my trust in him was strong. So he played the perfect son. He sat with me when I coughed. He smiled when I looked at him for reassurance. He told me stories of how people admired his work, how they praised him for taking care of his father. And I believed him. Each story made me proud. Each smile kept me blind. There were times I noticed small things. A letter left half open on the table, numbers that did not match what I remembered. I asked softly, and he laughed. "Oh, Father, don't worry about these things. You just rest. I've taken care of it." His voice was smooth, his eyes steady. I mistook performance for love. I mistook his lies for care. And I went back to my chair, sipping the tea he made, telling myself I had done right to trust him. He even spoke kindly about the future. He told me not to worry about the house, not to worry about the savings. "You'll always be safe here," he said. "Nothing will ever happen to you." The words sank into me like medicine, easing my doubts, making me think all was well. I looked at him and saw not a liar, but a protector. I told myself he was different from the greedy men I read about in the papers. I told myself blood was pure. I told myself love was enough. But behind his smile, behind his steady hands, behind his kind voice, he was already digging. He was already pulling from the accounts, already using my name to sign loans, already weaving a net of debt around me, and I did not see it. I was too busy believing the play he put on, too busy watching the mask, not the man. He had learned something dark, that the best lies are not shouted. They are whispered in calm tones. They are dressed as comfort. They are poured into teacups and placed on tables with gentle hands. He lied to me every day, and I thanked him for it. That is the deepest cut. I thanked him while he stole from me. The comfort of lies is dangerous. It makes you sit still while the fire burns under your chair. It makes you close your eyes when you should open them wide. It makes you weak while someone sharpens their knife. That was me. An old man in his chair, smiling at his son, thinking he was loved, while the walls around him were already falling. Looking back, I see it clear. His kindness was not kindness. It was performance. It was a mask to keep me blind. I was the audience, clapping for the play, never knowing the stage was built on my own grave. It was winter when the truth finally reached me. The morning was quiet, frost covering the windows, the kind of day when even the birds stayed hidden. I was sitting in my chair with a blanket over my knees when the phone rang. I answered slowly, my voice weak, expecting a routine call. But the voice on the other side was sharp, cold, professional. It was the bank. "Mister," the man said, "we are calling to confirm the situation with your accounts." My heart sank at those words. Something in his tone told me this was not routine. I asked him to explain. His voice stayed steady, but his words cut deeper than any knife. "Your accounts are empty," he said. "Every fund has been withdrawn. Several loans are overdue under your name." For a moment, I did not breathe. I felt my chest collapse, like the air itself had been stolen from me. I asked him to repeat, thinking I had misheard. But he repeated the same words, colder the second time. "Empty, overdrawn, debts outstanding." I dropped the phone, my hands trembling so hard the receiver hit the floor. My blanket slid down, but I did not feel the cold anymore. I stared at the wall, my mind blank. Decades of work, decades of savings, decades of sacrifice, gone. Just like that, not stolen by strangers, not taken by fate, but erased in silence, in the very house I lived in, by the very son I trusted. I bent forward, gasping for breath. My heart pounded like a drum of grief and fury. I thought of the factory shifts I had worked, the long nights saving every coin, the small meals I had eaten so I could put something away. I thought of the sacrifices I made for him, the opportunities I gave up so he could study, so he could rise higher than me. And now, with a single call, all of it was gone. Not by accident, by betrayal. I called the bank back, hoping for some mistake. I asked for details. They sent me statements. I opened them with shaking hands, my eyes blurring over the numbers. Withdrawals I never made, loans I never signed for. My name scribbled in places I had never seen. Each page screamed betrayal in the handwriting of the son I had trusted. I pressed the papers to my chest, shaking my head, whispering to myself, "No, no, not him, not my son." But the truth was inked too deep. It was his doing. That morning, I felt something die inside me. The bank's call was not just about money. It was about trust. It was about 30 years of faith crumbling in a single instant. My world did not fall piece by piece. It collapsed all at once, like a building struck at its foundation. The floor under me was gone. My son had taken it. And I sat there in silence, the phone still on the ground, the frost still on the window, realizing I had nothing left. Not wealth, not trust, not even a son. The call that morning shattered me. I had lived my life believing family was a shield. In that moment, I learned it could also be the blade. After the call, I could not sit still. My hands shook, but I forced myself to move. I went to the drawer where I kept old files, the ones I had stopped looking at because I trusted him to manage everything. I pulled them out, one by one, and laid them on the table. Dust rose into the air, but the truth was hidden beneath that dust. I opened envelopes, unfolded letters, stared at numbers that did not match what I remembered. My eyes blurred, so I used a magnifying glass. Line by line, the picture became clear. My son had been draining me for years. There were withdrawals I never made, large sums gone in single strokes. I saw dates when I was sick in bed, yet my signature appeared. I saw loans approved with my name printed neatly, but the handwriting was his. Credit accounts I never opened now carried balances that screamed thousands. Each page told a story, and every story ended the same way. Betrayal. I had trusted him with the keys, and he had used them to open every lock, not to guard me, but to rob me. The more I read, the heavier my chest became. Every statement was like a knife turning deeper. He had not made one mistake. He had not stumbled once in greed. No, this was a pattern. Careful, planned. Each month, each year, another cut, another piece stolen. He had been building a secret life with my sacrifice. Cars, nights out, luxury I never knew he could afford. And all of it came from my hands, my name, my sweat. I searched the house too. I opened his drawers when he was gone. I found receipts, contracts, letters from banks. Some carried my name, but not my hand. He had forged me again and again. He had turned my trust into a weapon, writing my name as though it was his own. My eyes burned, but I kept digging. I had to know everything. I had to see the whole truth, no matter how much it destroyed me. In the quiet of that night, I sat at the table with a mountain of papers spread before me. The lamp above flickered, casting long shadows. In those shadows I saw not my son, but a predator wearing my blood. I remembered his smiles, his gentle pats on my shoulder, his promises that all was safe. Now those memories felt rotten, like fruit hiding worms inside. Every page was proof. Every number was betrayal. He had taken loans in my name, debts I would carry if I did nothing. He had withdrawn savings I had kept hidden for decades. He had signed away securities that I once believed would protect me in my old age. He had gutted me, and I had sat blind while he sharpened the knife. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. For years I thought I was careful. For years I thought I was wise. But I was only a fool who gave away the keys and never checked the doors. My chest was heavy, but my mind was sharp now. I had seen enough. I could not erase what he had done, but I could decide what I would do next. That night, I swore to myself that silence would no longer be weakness. If he thought I was blind, he was wrong. I had opened my eyes, and I would not close them again. When he came home that evening, I was already sitting in my chair. The papers were stacked neatly on the table beside me, but I did not touch them. I did not show him what I had found. I only watched. He walked in whistling, keys jingling in his hand, humming like a man without a care. He tossed his coat on the chair, loosened his tie, and poured himself a drink. To him, it was just another day. To me, it was the day I stopped being blind. I looked at him with eyes I had never used before. For years I looked at him as my son, the boy I had raised, the man I thought would protect me. But that night, I saw him for what he truly was. Not a son, not family, but a predator who had worn my trust like a mask. His movements were casual, but behind them I saw the thief. Every sip of his drink was paid for with my money. Every step he took was built on my name. He noticed me watching and smiled. "Everything okay, father?" he asked, his voice smooth. I nodded slowly, but I did not speak. Words were useless. Words would only warn him. Instead, I gave him silence. Silence sharper than questions. Silence heavier than shouts. He shifted slightly, uncomfortable under my gaze. He did not know yet, but he felt it. The mask he wore was beginning to crack. Inside me, my heart was burning. I wanted to stand, to shout, to throw the papers in his face and demand answers, but anger would give him power. Anger would show weakness. So I held it in. I kept my lips sealed. My silence was my weapon. My silence gave me strength. He thought I was still the weak old man who signed where he told me, who smiled when he lied. But that night, I sharpened my silence into a blade. I remembered the bank's call. I remembered the cold voice saying, "Your accounts are empty." I remembered the weight of every forged signature, every stolen dollar. All of that pain boiled inside me, but I did not let it spill. I let it harden. I let it sit in my eyes as I stared at him. He laughed once more, tried to act normal, but I saw a flicker of doubt in his face. The hunter had become uneasy. He asked again, "Something wrong?" I only leaned back in my chair and shook my head. Still no words. Just the stare of a father who had finally seen the truth. That silence said more than any speech could. It said, "I know." It said, "Your time is short." It said, "The rope you thought was mine is already tightening around your neck." That night, he walked past me and went to his room. But I saw his shoulders stiffen as he closed the door. He felt it. He felt the change. He did not know what I had found. He did not know how much I knew. But my silence had told him something was different. And that was enough. I sat in my chair until the house grew still. I looked at the papers once more, the proof of his betrayal. My hands did not shake anymore. My heart did not race. I was calm. Because I knew what I had to do next. I knew where I would go. And I knew I would not warn him until it was too late. That was the night I stopped seeing him as my son. That was the night I saw him as nothing more than a predator. And predators, once revealed, must be dealt with. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with cold resolve. The next morning, I dressed in my old coat and walked slowly to my lawyer's office. My legs were heavy, but my mind was sharp. I carried a folder under my arm, filled with the papers I had uncovered. Statements, receipts, forged signatures, every proof of betrayal. When I entered, the lawyer looked up, surprised to see me so early. He had known me for years as a quiet man, always polite, never rushing. But that day, my face was different. My silence was not weakness anymore. My silence was iron. I sat down at his table and laid out the folder. My hands trembled as I opened it, but my eyes were steady. I pushed the papers toward him. "Read," I said. He adjusted his glasses and began to go through them. Page after page, his eyebrows drew together. When he finished, he looked at me with the face of a man who had seen this story too many times. "It's your son," he said softly. I nodded once. No tears, no surprise, only truth. I told him everything. The call from the bank, the empty accounts, the loans I never signed for. I told him how I trusted my son with every paper, every account, every part of my life's work. My lawyer listened quietly, taking notes. He did not waste words. When I finished, he closed the folder and folded his hands. "We will strip him from everything," he said. His voice was calm, almost cold. "Legally, cleanly, permanently. In that moment, I felt the first breath of strength return to me. My son had taken my money, my trust, my peace, but he would not take my dignity. He would not take my future. Not anymore. The lawyer drew up documents that very day. He explained each step carefully, but I already knew what I wanted. I wanted my son removed from every deed, every account, every corner of my life where his name had been written. I wanted locks where he once had keys. I wanted walls where he once had doors. One by one, the papers were prepared. Deeds were rewritten. Trusts were formed. Accounts were locked behind codes he did not know. It was not fast. It was not loud. But it was certain. Each document was another chain closing around him, another bridge burned behind me. I signed them with hands that no longer shook. Each stroke of the pen was a cut through the rope I had once given him. The lawyer looked at me with respect when I was done. "You are strong," he said. But I did not feel strong. I felt tired. Tired from years of blind faith. Tired from the weight of betrayal. Still, inside that tiredness, there was something new. Resolve. Cold, steady resolve. When I left the office, the folder in my hands was lighter. Not because the papers were gone, but because the burden was no longer mine alone. The law was now my weapon. My son thought I would stay silent forever. He thought I would bow my head and accept the ruin he had left me in. He was wrong. At that table, I stripped him not just from my accounts, but from my trust, my name, my legacy. I left the office knowing he would never hold power over me again. He had betrayed blood. I had answered with law. And law does not forgive. After the lawyer's table, the work began. Quiet work. Silent work. Not shouting in the street. Not slamming doors. But small strokes of paper and steady hands. The first move was to freeze the accounts. Every dollar my son thought he owned, every cent he thought he could touch, was locked in place. He could no longer move it, no longer hide it, no longer drain it further. It was as though the river of money he drank from had turned to ice overnight. Next came the transfers. Assets I had once placed under his reach were moved into private trusts. These trusts were bound by rules so tight, no trick of his could undo them. My lawyer made sure of it. Each transfer was another wall raised, another lock added. What he thought he controlled was slipping through his fingers, quietly, without his knowing. The house, the land, the securities, all shifted. My son believed he had secured them, but in truth, he had been holding sand, and now the tide pulled it away. The lawyer smiled faintly as he stamped the documents. "It's yours again," he said. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight on my chest lift slightly. The beauty of this reversal was its silence. My son still walked around the house, whistling, drinking, laughing, believing he had won. He did not know that in drawers and safes across town, his power was being erased. He did not know the fortune he bragged about was already ash. He did not know that every loan he signed under my name was now his burden alone. Because the law has its own way of balancing, my lawyer made sure the debts tied to his forgery would circle back to him. His name would carry the weight of the loans. His hands would tremble when the creditors came knocking. What he thought was mine to bear was now his prison to carry. I moved in silence. I did not confront him. I did not announce my actions. Let him think I was still blind. Let him think he was still safe. The longer he lived in the comfort of his lie, the harder the fall would be when the truth landed. I remember sitting by the fire one night, hearing him speak to his wife in the next room. He told her he had everything under control. He told her his father was too weak, too old, too blind to stop him. She laughed. They both laughed. And I sat with my eyes on the fire, knowing that by the time spring came, their laughter would be gone. Each step I took in silence was a stone removed from under his feet. He did not see it, not until the ground gave way. By the time he reached for the fortune he thought was his, it was gone. By the time he realized the accounts no longer answered his touch, they were frozen. By the time he understood the deeds had changed, the ink was already dry. The quiet reversal was not fast, but it was clean. It did not leave scars on me, it left scars on him. And I never needed to raise my voice. It did not take long for the silence to break. Creditors began to circle like crows. Letters arrived with his name stamped in red. Phone calls came, not for me anymore, but for him. The banks demanded payment. The loans he had hidden now stood in the open. He tried to answer with smooth words, but smooth words do not pay debts. His face drained as the truth cornered him. Neighbors saw the change. Once he walked tall, smiling, boasting about his success. He told them he was building a fortune, that he was the man who held everything together. But when the collectors came to the door, their voices loud enough for the street to hear, the mask slipped. Neighbors whispered. Curtains moved. The man they thought was strong was now exposed as a fraud. Friends stopped visiting. He had once thrown parties, pouring drinks, bragging about his wealth. Now he sat in silence as the phone stayed cold. No one wanted to stand near a sinking ship. His wife, who once laughed with him, began to pack her bags. I saw her leave one afternoon, suitcase in hand, eyes hard with anger. She did not wave goodbye. She did not even look back. She walked out, leaving him to drown in the wreckage he had built. He tried to hide it from me. He still whistled when he came into the house, though the sound was cracked. He tried to smile, but the smile trembled. I watched him sit at the table, staring at unopened letters, his hands shaking. For years, I had been the weak one, the trembling one. Now the weakness was his. The world does not stay silent when a man falls. Gossip spreads faster than fire. People in town spoke of him with pity, with contempt. They said, he betrayed his own father. They said, greed has no blood. His name became a curse. His pride became ashes. I never raised my voice to expose him. I never had to. The truth did it for me. The creditors, the banks, the neighbors, they became my witnesses. They revealed what he had done more loudly than I ever could. His ruin was public, his shame complete. I sat by my window and watched as the man who stole from me now had nothing left to hold. His lies had carried him far, but lies collapse when the truth arrives. And the truth had arrived at his door, in the hands of collectors, in the eyes of neighbors, in the silence of abandoned friends. He once thought he owned my world. Now the world knew he was nothing. It was not long before he came to me. His face was pale, his eyes wide like a man who had seen death. He fell to his knees in front of my chair, clutching at my hands, his voice shaking. "Father, please," he whispered, "help me. They're coming for everything." I didn't mean for it to go this far. His words spilled fast, but I heard nothing new. It was the same mouth that once told me all was safe, the same mouth that lied while draining my life. Now it begged, but begging is only another mask. I looked at him, but I did not speak. My silence was the same silence he gave my future when he erased it. He had looked at the papers, signed my name, stolen my trust, and never thought of me. Now he wanted me to think of him. I let him cry. I let him hold my hand. But I did not answer. My lips stayed sealed. My eyes stayed cold. He grew desperate. He promised to change. He promised to rebuild. He promised he would never betray me again. Each promise cut deeper because I knew he was lying even while begging. A man who steals once will steal again. A man who betrays blood will betray anyone. His words were hollow, echoes in an empty room. Finally, he shouted. His face twisted, his voice cracked. "You're my father. You owe me." That was when I saw the truth in full. He did not see me as a father. He saw me as a bank. He saw me as a name to use, a hand to sign, a wallet to empty. Even in ruin, he thought I owed him. That was the final nail. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence fall heavy. He searched my face for mercy. There was none. He had taken it all when he forged my name, when he left me to face the bank's call. What he did not understand was that my mercy had limits, but the law did not. The law had already taken back what was mine, and nothing could give it to him again. At last, he collapsed at my feet, his tears dripping onto the floor. He begged until his voice broke. Then he left, slamming the door behind him. I sat still, the house quiet once more. I did not feel joy. I did not feel triumph. I felt the weight of what I had lost. A son. But I also felt the strength of what I had gained. Freedom from his hands. From that day, I no longer called him son. He was nothing now, not son, not heir, not man. Only a shadow of greed, left to walk in the ruins of his own making. The house is quiet now, but it is a clean quiet. No lies live here anymore. No false smiles, no forged papers, no poisoned trust. I sit by the window with my tea, and for the first time in many years, I feel lighter. My wealth is safe. My future is secure. My name is no longer a weapon in greedy hands. I built walls around what I own, walls so strong that no trick can break them again. The law stands guard now, where I once placed blind trust. My son walks in shadows, penniless, empty. Neighbors whisper about him, friends turn away, even his wife is gone. He carries the shame on his back wherever he goes. The same shame he once tried to place on me when he stole behind my back. He thought he was clever. He thought he was strong. But greed eats its own hand in the end. He is learning that truth now, every single day. Sometimes I think of him as a boy. The small hands that once held mine, the laughter that once filled the house. It hurts to remember. But that boy is gone. The man he became is nothing but a stranger wearing my blood. A father must protect his legacy, even if it means cutting his own child away. And I did. I cut him out not with anger, but with cold resolve. Because justice is not always loud. Sometimes it is silence. Sometimes it is paper. Sometimes it is walking away and never turning back. I do not celebrate his ruin. I do not laugh when I hear of his debts or see his face in shame. Revenge is not joy. Revenge is peace, and peace is what I have now. Peace to wake without fear. Peace to live without doubt. Peace to know that what I built with my hands will never again be stolen by his. That peace is worth every tear, every sleepless night, every scar he left on my heart. Final thought. I trusted him with everything I owned. The bank's call shattered me, but my silence shattered him. Now I live free, while he carries the weight of his own greed until his last breath.